Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. Thanks for joining me in another episode of Keep It Real. As you know, fat loss, weight loss, changes in body composition has been a pretty key part of my clinical practice for some time now, because we know that when we can help somebody lose fat, help their body becoming better at fat burning, we can decrease a lot of different risk factors like obesity and diabetes and heart disease, certain types of cancer, strokes, even inflammatory joint conditions, a whole host of things. And so what I've noticed clinically is that the people who track their food intake, at least for a period of time, seem to be a lot better with the program that we put them on and have a lot better success in the outcome. And so I was interested in a study that was published recently. It was out of the University of Vermont, and it's actually being published this month in the medical journal called Obesity. And they did something very interesting. I think they did something for the first time. I've never seen researchers quite look at this angle. It's interesting. It's a 24-week program where they recruited participants to take place in an online behavioral weight loss intervention. And what they did is they did a little bit of basic nutritional advice kind of education, but basically they created a food diary that evaluated their calorie intake and their macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And what was interesting is not only provided them with a source where they can input the data of their diet and help them track it, but then on the back end, the researchers were able to mine that data and figure out the amount of time that each participant took daily in the food log, and also the frequency at which they logged in and visited the site in order to input their dietary data. And so they came up with some interesting information that definitely is in alignment with what I've seen clinically, and that is the people who regularly input the data are ones who are more successful and have better results. So here's what they found out in the 24-week study is that the participants who lost 10% of their body weight logged in the greatest amount of time. Or here's what was more important than the greatest amount of time that was logged in was the frequency. The people who lost 10% of their body weight logged in at least 3 times per day. So they're quick logins. They just logged in, put the information in, and got out. But here's what a lot of people think is when you ask somebody or just kind of talk to them about logging their foods in kind of a diet diary, there's a lot of kind of concern and trepidation of how long that's going to take, and they don't have enough time for that. So this is what these researchers did, I think for the first time, is they were actually able to evaluate the total amount of time per day that they took to log in. So if they take the most successful group, was a group that lost at least 10% of the body weight in 24 weeks, they looked at the time, and in the first month it was a little bit slower, but it wasn't that bad. It was about 23 minutes per day in the first month, and by the end of the 24-week intervention, it took them only a little over 14 minutes to input their data. So they only spent 14 minutes on their diet diary, on their sort of food log that evaluated their calories and macronutrients, and it allowed them to achieve their goals much more efficiently than people who did not spend that amount of time or did not as frequently log in and track their food. So it's really key, and it doesn't take that much time. So out of the 1,440 minutes that you have in a day, between 14 and 23 minutes a day to achieve your health goals is really not that much to ask. But a lot of people don't realize that that's how quick it is. So many of the iPhone and let's just say other smartphone device apps that are out there, and there's several of them. There's Lose It is one. Calorie King is another one, and MyFitnessPal, that's the one that I use. They have such a great database. I haven't really looked at the other two, but MyFitnessPal has an excellent database. It's very, very user-friendly. It's super, super easy, and And it's as you add foods in, especially the ones that you consume regularly, they just kind of pop up and populate very easily. So it becomes kind of intuitive as you start using it. So that's what really, I think, helps to decrease the time over time. And so, 14 minutes a day to achieve your fat burning weight loss goals, I think, are definitely worth it. And that's what this study showed. So in a pretty short period of time each day that you put into this effort, it really helps to, there's something that just goes on with our behavior when we actually track and we watch the numbers. But then you think back and you go, hey, our ancestors didn't have to track our dietary macronutrients and our calories, and they stayed fit, so why do I have to? The thing is, we're exposed to so many different food choices these days. We can have an extremely healthy diet, or we can have an extremely unhealthy diet. We have so many choices that we have to kind of monitor. We have to track and see what's going on. I think of it almost like finances. If somebody is like in debt, if you're unhealthy or unfit and physically unfit, it's very similar to being financially unfit. One of the first things that you have to do is you have to collect data. You have to see where you're most in debt. You got to see where your highest interest rates are. You got to figure out what's causing the financial imbalance. The same thing with your health. You have to track the data. You got to see. Whenever I've had patients track data, it's remarkable that they always come back and they go, "Wow, I didn't realize I was eating XYZ, or I was eating so much of this and so little of that." So it's always very telling, and a lot of really good information comes from it. And as the study shows, it really is not a huge time burden. Just a little bit slower at first, 20-something minutes a day. It drops down to less than 15 minutes a day, and you can really have the success that you want. So hopefully that's helpful. I'll keep reading the studies and bringing you the information. Until then, keep it real.